Hey, this is Sanyam Bhutani, and you're listening to Chai Time Data Science, a podcast for data science enthusiasts where I interview practitioners, researchers, and Kagglers about their journey, experience, and talk all things about data science. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chai Time Data Science Show. In this episode, I'm honored to be interviewing Kaggle legend, double Kaggle grandmaster, and former number one on the competitions tier, Gilberto, also known as his username Giba on Kaggle. We talk all about Giba's journey into the field of data science, broadly speaking, and also on Kaggle. Giba shares many amazing advices about Kaggle and also connects the dots for us of how those connect to the real world of data science. There are many advices about Kaggle, about data science, and how to get your first break into data science. Giba had a background of electrical engineering when he got started on Kaggle, and he shares a very honest and transparent view of his journey into data science as well as Kaggle. So I'm really excited to be sharing this. A quick note to the listeners, this interview will have manually checked and uploaded subtitles to YouTube. So if you're a non-native English speaker, please remember to enable those for a better experience. Along with the blog post release that will happen later. And if you're interested in that, you can find the links to the website again in the description of this podcast. For now, here's my interview with Kaggle legend and former number one Giba, all about data science and Kaggle. Please enjoy the show. Hi everyone, I'm on the call with the Kaggle legend, Grandmaster Giba. Grandmaster Giba, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me on the Chai Time Data Science podcast.
Thank you, Sanya. It's an honor to be here today and talk with you and everybody watching and listening to these videos. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
It's really an honor to have you on the show. You're currently in the top 4 rankings of the competitions leaderboard. Could you tell us about your Kaggle journey? What got you interested on competing in Kaggle and your path to becoming the number one eventually on the leaderboard?
Yeah, it's a long story, but sure. Actually, I was always in my life involved with algorithms and coding, but my graduation is in electronics engineering, right? And I worked for around 10 years, no, more than that.
Okay.
I worked for 15 years as an engineer.
Wow.
Before that transition to the data science, right? But during that time as an engineer, I was involved with coding and algorithms. Even my master was in a field related to optimization algorithms. Okay. I studied wireless communication and turbo coding. Actually, this is the correct name. Okay. It's a kind of algorithm to correct bits transmitted via wireless communication, right? Okay. So I was always involved with some kind of algorithms during my entire life.
I was reading online, you were an electrical circuit noob. You had created your first circuit board at the age of 10. I also saw a video of your Segway board testing Segway
really?
board that you had built yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I used to build my circuit boards by myself when I was a kid.
Okay.
And then, I built a Segway also around 6 or 8 years ago.
Wow.
Using microcontrollers. It was pretty cool.
And but you had taken the coding and even the circuitry portion of the project, everything was done by you?
Yeah. Actually, I built the circuit board using a soldering iron,
Okay.
you know, a
Yeah.
melting iron, right? Uh, Power transistors. I use an Atmel microcontroller. I coded the firmware of the microcontroller also.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I like that. But actually, the most experiments in electronics in my life, I made airplanes, electrical airplanes.
I've
Do you
seen
know?
videos of that
Like
also on your
remote.
channel. I think
Yeah.
the POV
Yeah.
cameras from the drones.
Exactly. I have some videos on YouTube. It's I coded some some onboarding circuitry and coding for the electrical airplanes. It was
Interesting.
my hobby for a long time since the electric motors appears in the market for electrical airplanes. I used to build it aerial models, but I like electronics a lot.
So how
I
did
still,
data
I still
science?
love it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I still love the electronics and the hobby,
Okay.
but since 2016, I moved to data science, and I stopped doing any electronics as a hobby. But I still want to do some electronics hobby in the future.
Okay. Maybe
Yeah,
you'll build a robot in the future.
yeah.
How did data science start to come into the picture for you all of these years after working in the electronics domain?
Yeah, sure. Uh, Doing electronics, it's a matter of coding nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So when I when I figured out that doing machine learning is something related with that field, or at least in the Internet of Things, there's a way to mix everything, right? Electronics, hardware, software. I start to get interested for different kinds of algorithms, and I found Kaggle in 2012 or 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Don't remember exactly, but I love it since the first time,
Okay.
right? When I joined Kaggle in 2012, I start to two competitions in Kaggle at the time. There's two competitions running, and I joined the two competitions, and it was about a time series challenge, energy and wind forecasts. And I realized that I had to learn a lot to compete on that kind of competitions. My previous knowledge about software had nothing to do with that kind of competitions, right? These are data science and time series competitions. So at that time, my knowledge about data science was based on my knowledge on MATLAB.
Okay.
MATLAB is I believe you know that, but it's a paid tool to mostly use it for universities and students, but also I started to use MATLAB in Kaggle,
Mm-hmm.
especially the MATLAB neural networks toolbox.
Okay.
I used on these two first competitions too, and I was pretty lucky. I got a top 3 and a top 11 on my first two competitions in Kaggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that time, it motivates me a lot more to continue learning that different field on that time, right? So it was a bit of lucky, but also I spent a lot of time on those two competitions in Kaggle also because I found it very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I got this top 3, top 11, and at that time it was enough to become masters in Kaggle.
Okay.
And at that time, master was the top ranking in Kaggle, right?
So
So
for the
I
audience,
got the master.
the
Yeah,
Grandmaster title was introduced much later after Giba had started. That's a recent addition to
exactly,
Kaggle.
exactly. So I got that title, the master time Kaggle, pretty soon, and it motivates me to continue a lot. and I enjoyed the competitions because Kaggle that have that feeling, right? That competition environment at the same time that you are learning and you're reading forums, kernels. It's pretty addictive, right?
Yeah.
You know.
How has your journey evolved from your first gold medal from 7 years ago to now 47 gold medals? I'm not even going to count the silver and bronze. How has your approach evolved and your views on Kaggle evolved over the years?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I believe my approach changed over time because my skills changes also over time, my knowledge, and even the tools changed over time, right?
Yeah.
Uh, as I told you, I start with MATLAB, then I move it to R.
There was no
Uh,
TensorFlow, no scikit-learn, I believe, back in
no,
2012.
yeah, yeah, it was on the beginning of these tools, right? But yeah, I start with MATLAB, then move to R, then Python. But my first approach in the beginning of Kaggle, of my journey in Kaggle, was pretty naive. Actually, I start to learn by myself on those competitions, right? Uh, I use a lot of Google search to learn on that time. And my first approaches I can say, are pretty naive. I start to think actually I start to think how data science and machine learning works by myself. I try to define my own hypothesis and test the hypothesis and find with my errors. So I found that building a good CV cross-validation strategy is essential to win a competition. I learned from my errors that trusting the public leaderboard is a mistake.
I
Most
faced
of the
that
case.
multiple times. I
Uh-huh.
faced that problem multiple times.
Yeah, yeah, but my approach improved over time. Uh, I start on the beginning. I used to code everything for every new competition. So I start from zero from every new competition. Today I have some libraries I built and I use it like when I start a competition. But at the same time, most of my code right now, I keep customizing to each specific competition. It's hard to build a generic code that you can use in all the competitions, right?
Yeah.
Code or pipeline, it's pretty hard to have it, especially for Kaggle, that the competitions can come from different areas, different
Yeah.
fields, and maybe if you are focusing in a specific field, maybe you can have some code that you can reuse on all the competitions, but it's not much in Kaggle. Maybe it's easier to do that on a company that you can follow the same way of thinking every day. Yeah,
Yeah.
but my approach improved over time. Right now, I think I have a good approach when I start a competition.
Talking of domain specific competitions, do you think like it's absolutely necessary to have business knowledge or domain knowledge for such competitions, or can you even win them without having the knowledge of, let's say, physics competition, for example?
Yeah, no, I don't think you must have specific knowledge to win a competition. But of course, it's not on 100% of the time, right? So I think Kaggle proved us that anyone can win any competition, right?
Yeah.
I am an example. I won many competitions in areas that I have no idea exists before the competition. I I won some, for example, medical competitions about cancer, rental prices in Australia, uh, so some risk competitions, uh, most different kinds of competitions I had no idea before. And I joined the competition. I studied a lot about the topic. I built hundreds of experiments. I found better way to improve the accuracy for that specific area. So yeah, I believe if you have expertise in a specific field, you have an advantage from
Okay.
people that are joining the competition, but it's not uh,
Necessary.
something, yeah, necessary. Yes, necessary. It's better to, you can jump a lot of steps in a competitions if you have previous experience or expertise in a topic, but it's not absolutely necessary. That's
Got it.
also the idea of Kaggle, right? The idea of
Yeah.
Kaggle is show the data set, the problem to everyone, and get the best solution from that challenge. That's
Yeah.
the idea.
So coming to your journey, you became an active Kaggler, and I was reading that no one at your workplace even knew that you were number one before you even told them, before you told you were shifting to data science. So can you tell us how did the transition, like most people try to use Kaggle to transition into the industry. How was the transition for you? And did you have to learn anything outside of Kaggle after you started working as a data scientist?
Yeah, that transition uh, is not easy and is not fast, right? Actually, I took 4 years for that transition for me. So during 4 years, I was learning data science, I was learning machine learning, Kaggle, using the internet, uh, and it took 4 years for me to change my title from engineer to data scientist, right? So yeah, I used to say to people, don't expect to be quick. Expect to have a lot of trouble during the transition, and expect it to be a slow transition. If it's going to happen too fast, maybe it's something wrong, or maybe you're not prepared yet. But data science is a field that have a lot of different, it's an area with a lot of different topics. It's hard to have a full knowledge in all these different fields and topics of the area. So it's good to learn one every time, one by one every time, every different area of data science or machine learning. So especially in Kaggle, you learn a lot of machine learning. But when you look outside on the industry, companies, you see there's a broader vision of what is data science. There are other areas that are not present in Kaggle, right? Especially because in companies, we are challenged every day to build a Kaggle competition every day. For example, in a company, usually you have a data set that changes every day, every hour. In Kaggle, the data set is fixed for the entire competition, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the challenge we face in companies outside Kaggle are especially related with data preparation, data acquisition, problem formulation, all the aspects of building the problem, the challenge, right? Kaggle is more about how to solve it using machine learning.
Yeah.
And during the transition to the data science, you will find that, because most of the things that you learn on Kaggle, you still can use on outside Kaggle, but you find that you don't know some other areas present on the daily life of a company, right? Like the ones that I told. Also, for example, model deployment is something not explored in Kaggle, but it's something very common when you join a company. And there are many ways to do that, and many ways to fail doing that. And yeah, so that's why I say, when you are transitioning to a data science field, try to do it slowly. not jumping steps, try to learn all the aspects of Kaggle and try to understand the difference of Kaggle and the real life problems to make it most smooth as possible, that transition. That is my recommendation.
That's great advice. Coming to
Okay.
your current job, you're lead data scientist at Opal.ai. Could you tell us what tasks are you working on? Is it somewhat related to all of your vast Kaggle experience that you gathered over the year?
Yeah, it is. It's all related with my Kaggle machine learning experience. Apple is building an automated machine learning product, right?
Mm-hmm.
For everyone. And to automate machine learning, there are a lot of aspects, lot of areas to make it possible. But most of the to make it possible, there are a lot of algorithms that make it possible, right? And having that experience in Kaggle helps me to understand better the machine learning algorithms and provide better ways to build that AutoML system. And I can't tell exactly what we are working on Apple, but I can tell we are covering all the aspects of the AutoML, since data preparation, data preprocessing, all the machine learning algorithms available, ensembling, stacking, hyperparameter tuning, model interpretation, deployment of models. So all these fields that I've been working on Apple and trying to make it as best as possible to the end user. And all my Kaggle experience can be used in order to improve that kind of machine learning product, because especially because I have the feel, I have the skill, or at least I improved my skills on Kaggle, right?
Yeah.
And I explored the machine learning algorithms the most as I could in Kaggle in order to improve the accuracy of the models. So that kind of experience, like tuning hyperparameters, using the best model as possible for each solution, setting a good cross-validation strategy, all this experience in Kaggle can be used in an AutoML product.
Coming to during your active Kaggle days, you're still very active, but when you were hyper active on Kaggle, how did you balance your time with Kaggle, family, and you were working in a completely different industry? Did you even sleep during that period? That's one question that everyone asks.
Yeah, back to the beginning of my journey in Kaggle. At that time, I have two babies and a regular job in a different area. So it was pretty hard to balance the Kaggle time, job, and family time, right? It was not easy for me at all. Actually, I used to work all the day, then I get home, take care of the children, and only after the children are sleeping, I started Kaggle.
Okay.
And I used to spend 3 to 4 hours per day on Kaggle at that time.
Wow.
And of course, I used to sleep very late in the night, so I don't sleep much during that period. Maybe I spend 20 to 25 hours per day on Kaggle during the time. So it's a lot of time if you have a regular job and babies at home.
Yeah.
And there's no secret or magic to do that. It's a lot of dedication, right? You must dedicate to what you want. If it's really what you want, there's no secret sauce. But right now, I'm not spending that amount of time in Kaggle anymore, right? I think right now my job and my family are in the top. So if there's some time left, I go for Kaggle or maybe some video games. Yeah, but right now is my life is different. It used to be like crazy.
Mhm.
Uh, 6 years ago, like spending also the full weekends doing Kaggle. But one strategy to do Kaggle is let your computer work for you, right? The computer can work 24 hours per day,
Yeah.
but you can't, right? So try to think about experimentation. Try to set the experiments and leave the computer working on that experience, because most of machine learning algorithms takes a lot of time to run.
Yeah.
And if you can manage to set experiments and leave the computer running during the night, it's a big advantage for you in a competition, right? Because
Mhm.
you don't lose much time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Coming
that's my
to,
advice.
as you said, like it takes a lot of dedication. I'm sure it takes a lot of talent as well. You had amazing finishes on multiple competitions. If you had to pick your favorite challenge or your favorite battle story, if I may, of one competition, what would that be?
Yeah, I have many favorite competitions.
Maybe your top three or top two.
Yeah, I believe my favorite competition was the one about the leakage, the Santander one. It's Santander Value Prediction Challenge. It's about a leakage that I disclosed it on the forum,
Mhm.
and I eventually winning that competition. I think this is my favorite one,
Mhm.
but I also like the Auto Group product classification competition. It was uh, it it was before I was the number one, but it was the first competition that I built a really huge stacking and assembling model. It was a multi-class classification, and it was my first trial to build a huge stacking ensemble
Mhm.
solution. So I like these two ones, the Santander, because I disclosed the leak, and then one and the auto because I use a very huge stacking to one. But
Yeah.
there are other ones that I love it. My first two about wind forecasting and energy forecasting that I picked good placements. It
Mhm.
was pretty good because I use MATLAB, and I won over some more experienced people than me. I have many favorites, but if I have to choose, I will choose that Santander one
Yeah.
because I dedicate a lot of time, disclose the leak, so everyone was on the same uh, place. And then, of course, it's a bit of lucky, but a bit of experience and hard work to win a competition. And we
Mhm.
managed to win that competition. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. There's a question from the AMA section. Carlos asks, you're well known for spotting target leakage in competition data. Do you have any uh, specific techniques, or do the approaches change for every competition?
No, the approach changed over every competition. Leak because especially because leakage changed, right? Every data set doesn't matter. It can be tabular data, time series, or image data, or a mix of everything, or even NLP. Every data set is different, and
Yeah.
every data set can be any kind of leakage associated with the data set. On that previous example on the Santander competition, the leakage was about a time series hidden in the data set. But I've seen in some image competition on the past that are some timestamps on the metadata of some images. And that the leakage can be different for each problem. And the way the leakage is hidden in the data also is different. So there's no classical approach, or there's no recipe. The recipe, actually, the idea is spend a lot of time taking a look at the data set, understanding the data set, build some hypotheses and test your hypothesis, right? Because sometimes you spend a lot of time in a data set, you find no leakage. And sometimes you can find something that is correlated with the target. It's a matter of trial and error. It's a bit of lucky also to find that issues in the data set. So there's no way to know if you don't try. And also I say it's a bit of lucky because you can try anything that comes to your mind, but the leakage is hidden something that you didn't test it. So yeah, there's no regular approach for that. Yeah, every time is a customized solution to find the leakage.
What kind of Kaggle competitions interest you today? What challenges do you look for, and how do you decide to enter a competition today?
Yeah, actually, I try to join all the competitions right now, but I just become active in a competition or I compete in a competition if I feel comfortable with the data, if I like the data, especially right now if there's no leakage involved in the data set, right? But my favorite competitions are the ones related with tabular data or time series data right now. So I prefer to join these two competitions. Why? Because I found it in the past that I feel more comfortable with that kind of data, right? I tried any kind of competitions in Kaggle, all the types of competition, Kaggle optimization, image segmentation, tabular, time series, all the time. And I found these two, tabular and time series, are the ones that I like more. I try to join all those kind of competitions. Of course, if the time allows to do that, if my free time allows to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are the two types I prefer right now.
So even after becoming number one, the best of Kaggle, and you held the title for the longest period, I think for 2 years, why did you continue to Kaggle? Even though you're not hyperactive, still one of the most active Kagglers, why do you still continue to Kaggle?
Yeah, Kaggle is addictive, right? But it's not about the prize money, not about being addictive, but I like to still competing in Kaggle to learn nowadays. I used to read the forums. I used to take a look at the kernels to see what people are doing. But especially, I like new kinds of competitions. So I used to be much more active in the past before 2017, but right now I'm not so active, but I still competing on Kaggle. I still to compete at least in one competition per time Kaggle right now.
Yeah.
But what makes me continue is that hungry to learn more, because you never learn enough, right? Every day there's something new on the data science area. It's hard to be up to date on the data science. You can use Kaggle to try new approach to different problems. You keep reading papers, reading new approach for new different problems. And Kaggle is good to test everything, right?
Yeah.
To test new approach paper, to improve your skills. Sometimes you want to learn something new. So I like to use Kaggle as a playground. That's why I continue using Kaggle. But I was much more active in the past. That's true.
Got it. So now when you enter a competition, and this is a question by Delay 50, what are your first steps when starting out on a fresh competition, and has the approach evolved over the years? Has your outlook on that changed?
Yeah, the approach when I enter is first step, understand the competition data, right? take a look at the data set, try to understand the features, how they are correlated with the target, the types of the features, and what kind of validation strategy are you going to build on that in order to solve that problem, right? Because sometimes to win a competition, you must mimic the test set distribution, the public or private test set distribution on your training set validation. For example, if your private leaderboard in Kaggle is a time series problem and your private leaderboard is based on 7 days of data, try to mimic that pattern on the validation, the training set. I mean, try to make the train set and the validation most close as possible as the test set validation. This is part of my approach. Usually I spend a lot of time trying to build a reliable validation strategy using the train set and using the information we have from the test set. And after that, just after having tried that validation strategy, think about start building good models. I mean, good models, I mean high accuracy models for that competition, right? Before that, makes no sense. If you don't have a good cross-validation or validation strategy, makes no sense trying to build high performance models before that. So yeah, set the validation strategy, maybe spend a lot of time doing that. I'm not saying only 1 or 2 days, maybe a week or 2 weeks, just thinking about that to make it really reliable, really stable, right? To generalize as better as possible in the test set. And then start to building models using that validation strategy. And what I mean building models, choosing different machine learning techniques to train models on the data set, maybe building different views of the data set using feature engineering, and eventually experiment with blending different solutions in order to improve the final accuracy. This is my very general approach for a Kaggle problem right now. Most of the time, I must say, it's best to spend more time in the beginning setting that validation strategy, then have to change everything on the last week of the competition or last 2 weeks, then becomes a mess, right? So it's good. It's good to think that way, because and also trust your local validation score. It's very important. Sometimes you must look at the public leaderboard score also, but most of the time, if you build your validation strategy correctly, you can trust your local metrics. So try to trust more local than the public leaderboard. That's part of the approach.
I think that's one of the mistakes that all of the beginners make, and especially you are one of the grandmasters that has survived most of the shakeups. You're always good at that. Coming to another aspect is teaming up on Kaggle. You've teamed up with multiple Kagglers over the years. What's your teaming up strategy and your advice to beginners who start looking for teaming up because they think it'll help better in terms of performance on the competition?
Yeah, there are many different teaming strategies. If you are a Kaggle novice, the strategy will be try to team up with a more experienced Kaggler, right? That's easy because you will learn from that more experienced Kaggler. But if you are a grandmaster, probably you are looking for some complementary approach for the problem. For example, an approach that's completely different from your approach, right? That is my main strategy when I team. I ask people to have an idea what approach they are using to solve the challenge. And if I consider it different from my approach, probably it's very good to teaming up with that person or that team in order to have two different viewpoints of the problem.
Yeah.
Because one way to improve the final accuracy of the models is blending modules using different approaches, right? And it is also part of the ensembling technique to have different viewpoints of the problem.
Yeah.
And I think this is most critical part when teaming with a grandmaster, is having something different to add to the solution. And usually it's hard to find someone that's different from you, especially because if people start to read too much the Kaggle forums, people start to build pretty similar solutions to the problem, or people start to get biased by the solutions present on the forum. So the forum is good, yes, but sometimes you must stop reading the forums and try to build your own customized solution to the problem. It can be vital to win a competition. It can be something that can improve a lot the accuracy of the final solution. Just building something different from others, right? Also, this is why blending a gradient boosting model with a neural networks usually is good for tabular data, because they are completely different approach, different algorithms, training algorithms, right?
Yeah.
This is similar to team merging. Find people that think different from you and have high accuracy models as well, right? But it's hard to find in Kaggle people like that, right? Especially because what I told you, people try to build solutions similar to the others in the forum. And also, it's hard to ask that kind of people about the solution, because before teaming up, you cannot share information about the competition, right? So what's the best way to try to tell what are you doing without sharing exactly what are you doing? That's another challenge. So teaming up is not easy. It's not easy in terms of find the right people to teaming up, asking the right questions before the teaming up, and deciding to teaming up. But what I can say, especially for novice people, try to teaming up with people more experienced in Kaggle, especially a master and a grandmaster in Kaggle, to learn. Because this is how I learn in Kaggle also. In the beginning, I teaming up with more experienced people than me, and I learn a lot from that people. I have a lot of tricks and tips also from that teamings, and I recommend a lot teaming. It's something I believe is the best way to learn, because you can share knowledge in a team. You can learn from the experience of more experienced people, and you have that advantage of building different approach for each team member, and then ensemble and blend all the solutions in one final solution. I think teaming is pretty good in Kaggle in all the aspects.
Yeah. You're also one of the people who are really great at ensembling, and you've given multiple talks that are on YouTube. I could have those linked. But any best advice that you have for ensembling all of your models? Has your approach changed over the years?
Yeah, ensembling it's a technique that is very easy to overfit if you do it the wrong way. So especially if you have a team, you have to set some rules to avoid overfitting in a big ensemble, and also you must take care of bugs in the code, especially regarding the cross validation or validation approach, because ensembling many models, to make it work, you must have out-of-fold predictions for all the models. And when I say out-of-fold, I mean do some validation strategy, like cross-validation or a time series moving window validation step by step. So one of my recommendations is do the model out-of-fold predictions is using exactly the same folds for all the models. Why that? Why that? To avoid leakage interfolds between folds of the same model. So if you train a model using exactly the same folds for all the models in your pipeline, you make it possible to compare the performance of all the models. This is the number one approach you must take care when doing Ensemble, right? To make sure that you are not leaking information between the folds.
Yeah.
And once you do that, the stacking becomes something trivial to implement. Basically, you are going to ensemble or merge predictions from different models, right? But I believe people must take care, especially with the validation. Also, there's one technique pretty common in Kaggle nowadays that is called target encoding, where you use the target information to encode the categorical variables. Also, the way how we do the target encoding can leak information from the folds and completely destroy an ensemble, right?
Yeah.
And so you must know what you are doing before doing that. And that kind of approach can destroy an ensemble generalization performance on the test set. And it's something you must take care when teaming up with another people, because people can have some different understanding about how to run that algorithms. And from one single leaked model can destroy an entire assembly of hundreds of models. So this is something that you must take care, avoid leakage and overfitted models in ensembles. And yeah, I think assembling is a pretty interesting topic. I would like to talk about it more. I use it a lot in Kaggle in the past, and it's one general way to improve the accuracy to the top, just blending different model predictions.
It's for novices, it's also like playing with fire, like you said, so you have to be careful. Another thing that's like playing with fire for the novices is hardware, and I'd like to touch upon this topic that a lot of your achievements were on a mid-range laptop. Do you think it's still possible to perform well in competitions, maybe even win on normal hardware? Maybe not the deep learning competitions, but for the other categories?
Yeah, I think it's possible with normal hardware. I started Kaggle using a low-end laptop. It's a Core i5 with 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Okay.
I used the laptop for many years. Then I switched to a better laptop, an i7 with 32 gigabytes of RAM, but no GPU at that time. It helped my life in Kaggle, because I was able to fit more data set in memory. But I don't think it's necessary to have a high-end spec on your laptop, your computer, to win a Kaggle competition. At least not a tabular data competition, right?
Yeah.
Also, Kaggle provides the kernels that have a good amount of memory, 16 gigabytes, and 2 or 4 cores available. So it's enough to win a competition, because competitions, people that win usually are the people that run more experiments on the data set. Right? Yeah. Competition is about running a lot of experiments on the data set. Most experiments you run, more chance you have to win a competition. because you have more information about the data. And right now, I use two servers, two Xeon servers, 18 cores each, and a lot of RAM memory, and at least one GPU in each one.
Okay.
But it's not what makes the difference for me right now. I believe your skills and your knowledge about machine learning algorithms are more important. But of course, if you are joining image competition, probably having more GPUs is a big advantage.
Yeah.
And right now there are a lot of Kaggle competitions running for image classification. So yeah, it's if you think that winning a competition is running a lot of experiments and you have dozens of GPUs available, you can run maybe dozens of experiments at the same time, right?
Yeah.
It's different from tabular data that are mainly the restrictions are mainly on the number of CPUs you have and a little bit about the RAM memory you have available. But I still thinking that tabular data and time series data, you don't need to have big hardware to win a competition. You can win using even the Kaggle kernels to do that. If you have enough knowledge and time to invest in the competition. Yeah, but it's not the case for image classification. I think there's a big difference between those two kinds of competitions.
Definitely.
And it was based on my experience also on both kind of competitions. But I still like image competitions. I have some GPUs to run, but it's unfair. I think it's unfair for people that don't have access to GPUs or have only one GPUs available. It's harder to win that kind of competitions using less hardware. Yeah. So yeah, hardware can play a big role in winning image classification competitions or maybe deep learning competitions, right? If we're talking about natural language processing also. Yeah. Some NLP problems, it's necessary to use large GPUs to run the models, or at least to load the models in GPU memory, right? Yeah. But it's not the case for tabular. Also, that's why I like tabular data. I can use my laptop and I can go with my laptop anywhere in the world and still competing without the need of large amount of GPUs.
Yeah. Talking about experiments, so there are times for people like me, especially when you get stuck on the leaderboard, you've been running a bunch of experiments, all are failing. What advice do you have for that time when your score isn't improving and the competition is still pretty active? How should you come up with new ideas or new experiments?
Yeah, that is the tricky part of the data science, because it's about your previous experience and doing that to solving that kind of problem, but it's also about having new ideas, right? And having new ideas is something it's hard to improve that kind of skill. When I'm running a lot of experiments, I try to run the basic ideas that comes to my mind, right? And I leave it running. Usually you have some predefined ideas that are pretty common between all the types of challenge. But I used to think about the competitions even during my work time, or even when I'm sleeping, I'm thinking about competitions. And usually some of the ideas comes from that time that you are not competing, that you are resting or playing video game, you're enjoying with your family, and suddenly the ideas just happens to appear in your mind, and you're thinking, okay, maybe I should experiment that new idea I just thought. There's no receipt to that. It's about it's an art, right? It's something like an art. It's about intuition. What are my intuition to solve that problem? If you have a lot of ideas, it's easier because you can prepare a set of experiments and leave it running. And taking note of the experiment results is pretty important also step. To record what you made, to log what you made in the past, what you already experiment is pretty
I think that's
important.
also where the intuition starts to build. If you start to get a rough idea that maybe this is not the best experiment because this has failed earlier.
Yeah. That's when you can use your previous experience to do that. But sometimes you have crazy ideas, and I recommend, if you have crazy ideas, try to implement that crazy ideas. Sometimes it works. At least it worked with me. Sometimes crazy ideas helps with the final solution if you are building an ensemble of many models. But also, there's no recipe how to do that. My recommendation is try anything that comes in your mind if you have enough time to do that. Anything, even crazy ideas, and especially if the ideas are different from the ideas of other people in Kaggle. Because if you are running exactly the same approach that other people in Kaggle, you get the same results of the other people. It's very good if you are learning, if you are a novice and you are learning. This is pretty good to try that common approach. But you're just going to win a competition if you build something different from the others, right? If you take a look at the forums, the prize winners, if you read the solutions, you see they made most of the time things different from the other people. They think out of the box. They code something completely different, or sometimes some step is different. But it's hard to win a competition using a general approach, right? A pretty common general approach. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Try everything and anything that comes in your mind. Even if you are sleeping and you have an idea during the dream, try to implement it in real life. It happened with me in the past.
Okay. What best advice would you have for a novice just getting started on Kaggle right now?
Okay. To a novice, I recommend to read the forums, right? Try to attend some online classes, online courses, or any free courses or maybe paid courses online to have an idea of the idea of machine learning and data science. But at Kaggle, try to read a lot of the forums, try to replicate or at least understand the kernels, Kaggle kernels, and especially try to team up with more experienced Kaggle. This is pretty good. Maybe you cannot just think with a grandmaster, but maybe you can team with an expert or a Kaggle master. If you have some friend that is a master or an expert, it's easier to team up. But try to learn from that people, because you can learn how Kaggle works and you can learn how machine learning works. They're two different things. To learn machine learning, you first need to learn how Kaggle works, right? There's some rules in Kaggle. And another advice is don't try to learn everything on Kaggle, because data science, there are too many fields. If you try to learn everything, you get crazy. Try to have just to know that every field exists, but try to experiment just a bit of every field and try to find the field that you have more you are more comfortable or you are more interested about how it works. For example, some people can find that natural language processing fits better with the experience of that people's. Other people prefer to work with image processing or image classification. Other people image segmentation. Other people likes time series. Try to get expert in any in one specific field before trying to learn other fields, right? Don't try to learn everything at the same time. You get crazy. It's impossible. There's so many things, so many papers, so many theory. So try to specialize in one specific field and get better on that field before moving to other fields. And if you like that field, maybe you should continue work on that field, right? I know a lot of people that just work on that field and don't want to change. That's my advice for novice.
That's great advice. Just like this interview that has been full of great advices. I have a final question, and this will be tough for you. What has been your all-time favorite game and your current favorite game, and PS4 or Xbox? Because I know
that's the hardest question. I have to think a little about that. Actually, I had all the game consoles. I had an Xbox. I have all the PlayStations. But I have a lot of favorite games. Maybe for PlayStation 4, the ones that I like it more are the God of War series. You know,
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I liked a lot that series, all the God of War games. And from the Xbox, I love that Gears of Wars. It's a shooting game. Gears of Wars 1, 2, 3, 4. There are a lot of
5 is also out now, I think.
Yeah, okay. But I have a lot of games that I like. They're not my favorites, but I love. For example, Horizon Zero Dawn for PlayStation 4.
Yeah, it's an amazing game.
Yeah, even Spider-Man, Uncharted, some role-playing games. There's some new releases. Death Stranding now. Yeah, there's so many good games, and I'm a huge fan of games for all my life. I won some video game competitions before when I was a kid also.
So you had that competitive element, but if you have to name one favorite game of all time throughout your life that you really enjoyed.
All the time?
Yeah.
Wow, that's hardest question, right? Okay, I think the game that I spent most of my time playing the game was a very old game from PlayStation 1 called Final Fantasy VII. Do you know that game?
I have played that game.
Yeah, I think I spent most of my time playing of that game. I think I spent hundreds of hours playing that game. This one game, I love it. Yeah. I think I can choose this one. It's an old one, but I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grandmaster Giba, for joining me on the podcast and for all of your contributions to the kernels and discussions on the Kaggle community as well.
I appreciate your invitation to be here, and it was an honor for me. So thank you also.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give it a review or feel free to shoot me a message. You can find all of the social media links in the description. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.